are here. Let's wrap up the NBA regular season. We are going to do that with a Rank Wars episode. How's it going, guys? My name is Andrew. I am your host and one of the analysts over at Angle Fantasy Basketball. What we're doing today is we're going to talk about our dynasty ranks, which could be found on anglefantasybasketball.wordpress.com. And the theme of what we do in Rank Wars is we attack each other's personal rankings. So we do obviously have an average rank column on our dynasty rankings, but what we're going after is our individual rankings. So we're going to be covering 6 players today. Each analyst will call out a specific player that they want to discuss from the other 2 analysts' lists. So speaking of the analysts, let's introduce them. First off is going to be Mitchell, sporting a pretty awesome jersey today. Tell us about that, and how are you doing today, dude?
Of course. So this is a Jordan Clarkson jersey that I got. And just this past year, he played in FIBA for us for the Philippines. We didn't get, the result we wanted. We're not qualifying for the Olympics as an Asia representative. That's Japan. But we did beat China. So I'm very happy about that. And yeah, I'm ready to talk rank wars with y'all.
Absolutely. This is a very fun type of podcast that we like to do. So let's take it over to Brax, who's got an interesting background going on for him today, too. How's it going, Brax?
Good, man. I freed my boy Jonte Porter, man. All he did was he was just on Discord, man. Doesn't mean he did it. He's not giving financial advice. He's just talking about if he were to give financial advice. So good, man. Feeling good. Feeling good.
Very good. Very, very good. All right. So we are here. We are locked in. Let's get ready for Rank Wars. Let's play that clip. Okay, so to start us off with Rank Wars, we're going to turn it over to Mitchell. Mitch, who do you want to call out? Who are we first talking about today?
The host himself. I'm going to call out you, Andrew. So the player I want to discuss is Dereck Lively. I see you have him ranked 53. But before we start, I just want to say I love Lively as a prospect long term. But I see you also have Gafford at 51, who does seem to be a better long-term fit next to Luka, as the Mavs have won 16 of their last 18 games. So the Mavs have really invested into Gafford. He quickly took over Lively's starting spot. So it's more of a question mark for me to see, is this rank indicative as like a far out, like 3-year far out outlook, or is it something where you're hoping Lively gets a trade to where he becomes like a top 50 dynasty asset?
I would definitely go with the former there, more so like 3-year, taking more outlook into consideration. And the biggest reason for that is because Lively is only 20 years old. So right now, Lively is barely outside the top 100. He's at 113 right now. And for the most part, centers, especially high rebounding centers, can find themselves in a really good spot ranking wise. Like, for example, even though he only played 19 games, Mark Williams at a per game average was at 58. That's just one example to share of how things like that can happen. Someone like Clint Capella is inside the top 100 right now in like the lower 90s range too. So factoring in the type of stat set as well as his age, really what I want to see Lively add on more is points and rebounds. The defense is there. Defense is pretty good, especially for a rookie. 0.7 steals per game and 1.4 blocks per game. That's actually not bad at all. You would think that would be something that would be more of a weakness in his game as a rookie, but in regards to 9-category basketball, that's pretty good. But the points and the rebounds is where I want to see the biggest improvements at. 8.8 points and 6.9 rebounds. I think as he learns the speed of the game more, especially as he adds more size to his frame, which is more so going to be helping in the rebounding department too. I think if we see a increase in scoring and rebounding, which is for sure possible with the level of prospect he is and how old he is, figuring out the game more, then I think we're going to see this ranking or like the redraft yearly output for him rise upwards, break into the top 100. So that's where I have him, or why I have him where he's at. I mean, Gafford's up near that range too, because he's currently producing at an amazing level. 9-cat wise, he's actually in the top 40 right now, and he's only 25 years old. So I think, he even has, with him, there is a bit of curiosity here as to what Dallas is going to do moving forward, but I think it's a bit naive right now to assume any kind of trade with them, especially involving both Gafford and Lively. I think they like having both of them on the roster and using both of them too. So I don't really want to try to lean in here and expect a trade. I just want to more so lean into Lively possibly being better. And I hope this doesn't like morph into a Clint Capella, Onyeka Kongu situation. It has potential to be there. It kind of reminds me of that, but it's something to look at moving forward. But I guess I'd want to know your input because you and I are such good friends. I've been talking about Lively pretty much since around 2021. So do you think, does he not have like the potential to add maybe more scoring and rebounding to the stat set, or is it kind of just Gafford that more gives you pause?
It's a little bit of both. Seeing that success of Dallas is really encouraging, right? They avoided the play-in. A lot of it is in part with that partnership with Luka and Gafford. But Dereck Lively in college, I think he averaged 4 points and 4 rebounds a game,
Yeah.
which isn't very exciting long term. He's better, in my opinion, in real life, right? He's a very switchable defender in the perimeter. He's very agile. He's a great shot blocker, which will really be indicative of his ranking moving forward and something that is really going to really value him as an asset. But I'm a little bit wary on that for the rebounding and scoring purposes, which is why I still have him around that top 75 range, which is very valuable, by the way. I just don't know about top 50.
Very, very good. All right. So let's take it over to Braxton now. Braxton, who are we going to be talking about today?
Mitch, I think it's your turn, man. I see you got Jordan Poole at 94. I don't know, man. That feels pretty absurd to me. This was supposed to be his year. He was going to have all the usage he wanted. He was going to have a top 30 finish. If you remember, he's getting drafted in redrafts, the first 3 rounds. And, abysmal start of the year, probably worse than I think anybody could have imagined. And he's rounding out the year at 116. Where does he go from here? How does he get back up to 94? I think, I can't foresee him having a bigger role than he did this year on this Wizards team. Any other team he goes to, it's going to be a small role. Yeah, I don't know how he cracks the top 100 ever.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, first half of the season was putrid. I believe Josh Lloyd projected him as a 27 point per game scorer, which is insane. I mean, we can all admit that. But after that slow start to the season, he's really kind of come into his own in his former role off the bench. I know Tyus Jones has been out for the year, but even when he was brought on the bench, he had some promising signs. So the last 3 months, he is in the top 115, which is kind of where I project him as. And the reason why I'm having him borderline top 100 is because of his age, right? So if he does kind of solidify himself as a top 100 asset, top 115 producer, you compensate that with age, he's kind of in that area, in my opinion. And there's some very encouraging signs, by the way. In the last 2 months, he was top 75. Last month, he's top 70. And he's also someone that has proven to be a contributor on a playoff and championship contending team, as we've seen with the Warriors. So, he's really had a struggle adjusting as a top 1, top 2 option, but even as maybe the third option as a 6-man, we could see these top 75 numbers like right away. So I would just hold tight. I wouldn't sell for like pennies, by the way. He still could be a guy who averages 20 points per game, maybe 3 rebounds and 4 or 5 assists with a steal on really great 3-point shooting, low field goal, bad turnovers, but that's kind of what you want anyways in a productive 6-man. Just in my opinion, Malik Monk on steroids if all things hit right.
I kind of view him more as a worse Jordan Clarkson. Not to take any shots at Jordan Clarkson, but I think something also to consider here is, and this is more speculation, but like, when you see these guys on big contracts where they get salary dump once, it's like, okay, if the Wizards are decent in the next couple years, if Jordan Poole does get traded, I think it is in a salary dump capacity. So I think that's just something that's kind of in my head as well. Is like if he gets moved again, it's purely going to be to move that salary off the books. And any team maybe he gets waived by the new team or whatever it is. I just think his role only diminishes from here. Um, if the Wizards draft somebody good with their early pick or whatever it may be. So um,
Like
definitely some good points you made there, though.
like an Evan Fournier trajectory where just loses the minutes and then they just
Oh
want to get
God,
rid of his contract.
maybe not
There's
that
no
bad.
way.
Maybe not
There's no
that
way.
bad.
All right, fair
Fournier
enough.
begging to get on the floor.
Right. I mean, well, I would have to agree with Mitch, at least in regards to like not trading Poole for pennies. I think his highest value is on your roster. You're not going to get something like good enough for him if you're actively putting him on your trade block and trying to get rid of him. I think the highest value he can bring to you is producing what it is that he can do on your roster. Just, you're going to have to wait for that trade value to try to, boost itself back up. But now we're going to move over. It's going to be my turn now. So, I have beef with both of you regarding this guy, but Braxton, you happen to be the person who listed him the lowest, and that's going to be Derrick White, bald Derrick White especially, which hurts my feelings because the guy is currently ranked 27th overall on the year. He is only 29 years old, so I consider him to still be within the prime age window. So in my opinion, it's like 25 to 30. So we're still looking at 2 to potentially 3 more years of very similar type of production coming out of White. And this is not a situation where he, was on a crappy team and is about to be on a good one. He's already on the best team in the NBA. Even if you fully punt out turnovers, he's at 38th on the season. So, with you and Mitch have him both barely inside of the top 100, and you especially have him at 90. So I just curious to know what Derrick White's got to do to get some more love.
I mean, maybe I can give him a couple more spots to like 85 or something, but I just feel like his floor is too low on a nightly basis to have him as a top 55 guy like you do. Something that I think maybe is being overlooked here last week with that Drew Holiday extension, that four-year 135 deal. Derrick White may be priced out of Boston. He's got 1 year left on that deal at $17 million. But after that, who's to say, right? I think this system is really catering to his strengths, and it's just kind of a perfect, mishmash of factors that are allowing him to have this career year. I mean, he's a career high on 2-point percentage, 3-point percentage, free throw percentage, and it's his highest field goal since his second year. Obviously, he's not taking a bunch of crazy shots. He's the fourth option on some nights if KP is in the lineup, right? So I worry that this may be his peak. It's just and also something to consider as well. Like with this, you mentioned he's on the best team in the league, but with the Celtics being so good, they've been able to stagger that rest really well in a way that allows him to have upside on a nightly basis. So I do think next year he's definitely I would say he's a top 50 asset for sure next year. But beyond that, in his age 31 season, where does he sign? He's probably earned himself a big contract. I worry that maybe if he signs to a worse team for a bigger deal, that field goal kind of drops down a little bit, which is elevating his value into that 20-30 range, right? If he's shooting closer to like 40% or 42% like he has in the past couple of years, he's probably not that high, even though with the blocks and the assists and everything like that. So, yeah, I mean, maybe a couple more spots, but I don't know. I have a tough time getting him that high. My head, he's still more of a role player with even, he is doing awesome, obviously, but long term, I am a bit concerned.
Well, I mean, I think I agree with the point of the role player, which is why I'm comfortable putting him where he's at, because he produces where he's at a low usage. He doesn't need a ton of usage. He's only at, I think, like 21 usage around there. Maybe even less. Actually, no, 18, less than that. So, for somebody like White, he doesn't need a massive role to produce the way that he does. He still is able to grab rebounds, produce defense. He's good, pretty much across the board. Yes, the efficiency, I can see a potential like red flags there if this doesn't continue. I mean, Boston overall has a lot of this going on. A lot of guys shooting at super high efficiency right now. It's kind of just the way that that team's rolling overall. I agree too. There's, like a money squeeze coming up. Guys like Derrick White might not be able to stay. Somebody like Sam Hauser for sure is not going to stay. He's got like a one year left, 1.9 million, and then after that, somebody's chucking around 20 million for a shooter like that. So it is curious to see how it goes with the Celtics, but I think this White is somebody who can do this on any team, which is why I put him where he's at. If White was like 32, then I wouldn't, then if anything, I would have him too high at this point if he was like 32 years old. But I think at 29, there's still, a couple of really good producing, top 50 years left, which is why I have him where he's at, as opposed to expecting a hard-nosed decline, if he was at his age 32 season.
Andrew, I do want to say, can I chime in really quick? Andrew, you said I barely had him in the top 100. I have him at the top 75.
I know. I just looked at that too.
Not barely. Another thing I want to say, I do love Derrick White, by the way. And what you didn't mention, what really spikes his value in a good way, is category scarcity. Derrick White is one of the best shot blocking guards since Dwayne Wade. Something to mention.
I agree. It's a great point.
Yeah, that's a great point as well. I'm kind of thinking, and obviously this is in making this comparison, maybe I'm arguing against myself, but I'm kind of thinking like a Fred VanVleet thing, right? Where, he left Toronto, he took that huge deal in Houston, and I think White, it's very possible White does something similar, right? He hasn't had that huge payday yet. And we saw VanVleet dip from like a top 15 type guy, not dynasty value, but like in terms of, output into, somewhere in the mid 30s. So
yeah, he was valued around the mid 30s, 40s. Fred VanVleet. I remember I was thinking of selling the third pick in 2022 to Colby in our Big Three league for Fred VanVleet. Thank God I didn't, because Banchero, he's awesome. But yeah, you never know.
Big contract on the bad team is hurt VanVleet. Still valuable guy, right?
I don't know if I agree with this. I'm seeing right now. I'm seeing him at 18th. I'm seeing him right behind Chet. Fred.
For this season?
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I'm looking at hashtag right now. He's got 32 on the season.
32 on the season. Maybe I have a setting on that. So, oh wait. No, yeah, I see him at 18 on Basketball Monster.
Yeah, he's 18.
I don't use Basketball Monster, so I'm going to choose to believe my truth and only that truth.
All right. Well, I guess we can agree to disagree, but I think Fred's still good. But let's move on. Let's go circle back to Mitchell again. Mitchell, who is your next call out going to be?
Yeah, so Brax, for you, I see you have Ayton at 78. I believe that's a little too low, and I don't know if it's the public perception of Ayton, that he's not a hard worker. There's been those stories on draft night where someone interviewed Ayton what his long-term goal was in the NBA, and his answer was to get a second contract. Not something that you really want to hear from the #1 overall pick. So yeah, the public perception isn't great on Ayton, but his production really is undeniable. He's only had one season outside the top 50, which was last year, and he was right there at 52. So yeah, like this year he's averaging really great numbers. Nothing that you wouldn't say is unsustainable besides his free throw, which he's shooting 82%. Even if he drops to 80 or 75 or 77, he's still going to be a top 50 player. So Ayton, he's 40th for the year, 23rd in the last 3 months. He's actually a first round player in the last 2 months. So, it really kind of gives me some questions, especially when you have players like Jarrett Allen at 52, when they really produce at a very similar level. And at 52, that's 26 spots higher, almost one entire round from a 30-team perspective. So curious to hear your thoughts on DeAndre Ayton.
Yeah, to me, Ayton just, I don't know, man. I really don't like the stat profile. He really just profiles as one of those guys to me that has like the inflated 9 category ranking where, he's not really hurting you anywhere, but he's not really helping you win anything besides like rebounds. 18 points, 10.9 rebounds, 1.5 assists, and then 0.9 on both steals and blocks. Like you mentioned, the free throw is good, but if Robert Williams ever decides he's able to play basketball again, you know, I, I don't know. The Blazers don't seem terribly committed to Ayton to me, with Duop Reef outplaying him some nights in both minutes and in production. And I believe Reef is already under contract for next season. I think they get like a 3-year deal. With that, and like if Robert Williams comes back, there's a bit of a three-headed monster there at center. They're certainly not going to play any of them next to each other. So I just worry about their long-term commitment to Ayton. There's obviously those reports about his work ethic. He's just somebody I wouldn't want to put that much capital in, which is why I have him down there at 79. He's just not somebody I would ever have on one of my teams. I never would want to pay market price on him. Yeah, I just it just his impact on a team just doesn't feel as significant to me as somebody like Jared Allen, like you mentioned here. Jared Allen, at least on a nightly basis, this year has that assist upside. He's got that blocks upside. So I much prefer somebody like Jared Allen over DeAndre Ayton. He's just more of a boring, which I guess it isn't necessarily a reason to drag him down your rankings, right? But I don't know. He just seems like a Zubats on steroids to me, and I worry about his long-term outlook.
Yeah, okay. I do want to point out about Reef. In the last 2 months, Aiton's playing 34 minutes a game, and the last one 35 minutes a game. So there is no timeshare when they're both healthy. Robert Williams, he's cooked, man. He's probably getting traded. I don't see him ever being healthy again. It's been
Who's trading for him?
3 years, almost 3 years in a row where he's hasn't even cracked 50 games. So a lot of cause for concern. Maybe they do draft Alex Sarr. That could be something that really mixes things up. But I don't see Reef being a real contender for minutes. Even on winning teams where he does have a lesser role, he still cracked the top 50 with only 30 minutes a game. So Ayton doesn't need a long tenure to play on the court to produce. He's just going to get you 18 and 10. I know it's boring, but he could be a real field goal anchor for you as well. So, and he doesn't hurt you, which is always a good thing.
Well, I mean, the share with Reith is there though. He's Ayton, averaging 30 minutes a game, and Reith with 18 on the year. Obviously, Ayton was a little banged up early in the season, right? But I don't think Robert Williams gets traded. That was somebody they wanted from the deal from Boston, right? Like I think the idea is that he comes back, and then what do you have a 3-man center rotation? It seems like they really like Reith as well. I don't know. The long-term commitment to me seems a bit iffy. I think there's an argument to be made that you can kind of pin some of this late season production on Ayton, or for Ayton rather, just based on the fact that the Blazers have nobody healthy. Who else are they running through? It's Scoot and Ayton, and I just
when you look deeper into the stats, Reef's minutes when Ayton was gone as a starter was 27, but as a reserve, when they're playing at the same time, right? Reef is only averaging 13 minutes a game. And when Time Lord ever decides to come back, he's not going to play prolonged minutes. It's going to be 20 minutes, and all the Reef's minutes are going to be gone. So Ayton is probably their future unless traded otherwise.
Yeah, I think that's where you lose me. I don't think Reith leaves the rotation. Andrew, I know you like Duop Reith.
The Great Barrier Reef, dude, of course.
Yes. I have a hard time seeing him outside of the rotation. This is somebody that they've discovered, they've given a guaranteed contract to, and to me seems like somebody they want to have in their plans as the backup center.
I am very curious to see how that shakes out.
Not that it's going to cut into Ayton significantly or anything, right? But maybe Ayton drops down to 26 minutes, 27 minutes. And
okay, that's not happening. 26
What do you
minutes.
mean? What are you talking about?
What are you talking? When they're playing together, he's playing literally 34 minutes a game. Reith is getting 13 minutes.
If Robert Williams is healthy and on the court,
Williams is healthy.
I'm just saying, it's not like I have Ayton outside the top 100 here, okay? I've still got him in that upper tier of, or that second or third tier of centers. I just don't think he's a 34-minute guy on a team that wants to win any games.
All right. Fair enough then. All right, so let's move it on now. Let's go to you now, Braxton. Who we got to talk about next?
Oh, thank God. Let's go, Andrew. You got Andrew Wiggins at 245. I mean, that is disrespectful, man. You know, he's had just last year he finished inside the top 100 at 89. He's had the personal stuff this year. The Warriors rotation has been a bit of a mess all season. You think he's done as any kind of relevant asset in fantasy basketball at 245?
Well, it's just what I talk about. What I'm looking mainly at here is the regression and a lot of stuff, honestly, across the board. I mean, last year he only played 37 games. What I'm noticing is a regression other than his what was a great finals performance in 2021. He was a key part because he was the guy where, you know, the Celtics were focusing on Clay and Steph and they were daring Andrew Wiggins to shoot. And he was doing a great job. And he was also doing a great job, you know, being a great rebounder when the Warriors were going small too. So he played a big part in that last title run. But I'm really starting to see regression every year since then. Regress down like, you know, not a huge regression the first like year after the finals. The next year after that was when he had a lot of those personal issues. He only played 37 games. So those numbers were pretty similar to the 2022 numbers. But then this season, regression across the board, down 4 points per game. Rebounding is down. Assist is down. The steals are gone. Steals was a big part of what boosted him up last season. He was at 1.2. He's at 0.6 this season. The blocks are down. The 3-point percentage is from 39 to 36. The field goal percentage is from 47 to 45. The minutes are down from 5 minutes per game. There's just a lot across the board that's going down. And there's just, you know, in rank wars, we get to pick one guy to go after and defend. So, you know, we're talking about Andrew Wiggins here. It's like, this guy sucks. Why are we going to use your pick on Andrew Wiggins? So I was happy to talk about and defend where I put Andrew Wiggins at, who's currently 221 on the season. The main reason why he's still within my rankings is because he's 28. If this guy was like 31 or older, I would probably consider not ranking him at all. I'm really only looking at points here for him. You know, that's really it. But it's just the regression across the board that gives me a lot of pause. And I have a lot of young guys in that similar late end of this of our rankings range, where if I had Andrew Wiggins and someone offered me Noah Clowney or Ben Shepherd, I would be pretty happy to take that. It's just somebody where I would want to get rid of him as soon as I can, just because I don't like where things are headed for him. And I understand that some people with, you know, on a win now team could potentially use him. But when we're talking about dynasty with a long-term outlook, he's just somebody I'm trying to steer clear of. I don't know. Mitch, as a Warriors fan, what do you think about Wiggins?
I mean, he was incredibly frustrating to start the year. He was, I don't know what it was. I heard it was personal issues again. Someone in his family was sick or something, and he had like a weird rib injury. And he was one of the worst players plus minus on the Warriors for the first half of the season. But to Brax's point, you know, the second half of the season, he kind of turned it around. Weirdly enough, you know, Curry's been experimenting him with Kuminga and Trace Jackson Davis. And he's upped his efficiency. And his free throw, surprisingly, is at 80% for the last half. But I don't know, maybe it is a fluke because his free throw has never been great. He's not hurting you there. And percentages do heavily impact 9 category ranks, which is maybe why he's borderline top 100 the second half of the year. But yeah, I don't know where to really place Wiggins. I'm in between you guys. I think he still is a decent asset, but I'm really indifferent on him as a Warriors fan.
Let's see.
I mean, I just think it's a major overcorrection to have him down there with guys like Noah Clowney. I mean, that just tells me I got to get Noah Clowney and sell him to you, Andrew. That's, I mean,
well, it's just so
guy,
I would take, it's more so representing that I would take like a young stash guy instead of him, a guy I need to take, like someone I need to wait like 2 or so more years on. I would rather have that than Wiggins at this point.
And maybe you're coming from a salary perspective, which makes more sense, you know, what we're used to.
Sort of, yes, but I think in general, even without salary, I would rather have someone that's like stashable. Like, I'm not talking about like both guys I'm talking about are first round picks. I'm not talking about, you know, someone who was barely a second round pick and has been in the G League all year. But I just think there's a lot more guys, especially potential wise, that I would rather have. So if there is someone who's looking for a win now move and they'll give, maybe they just picked in the 25 range and they'll give you that range for Wiggins, I would take that.
I mean, that's
25
crazy
first
to me,
round
man.
range.
He's under contract for another 2 seasons at 26, 28, and then he's got a player option for 30 mil in 26, 27. I think he's locked in as a core piece of this Warriors team unless they do another cap dump somewhere else.
I don't know.
Right?
Kerr is churning over the roster a lot, like trying out a lot of different things. Where's Dario Saric? He was on this rank earlier on in the year. So it's just it's not a situation that I love right now, especially with like the front court rotation of the Warriors besides Draymond Green. There's just kind of a lot going on. I mean, obviously Trace Jackson Davis has great prospects going for him right now too. So I guess we could include him in that, in that category there. But like Looney's not on this list anymore either. Looney was someone who was a staple on dynasty lists for a long time. So it's just the Kerr's really trying to redo things with the front court rotation specifically of the Warriors, and it's taken a toll on dynasty ranks. Guys like Looney and Sarge are not even in here anymore.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not a huge Wiggins guy, right? I mean, I think I'm very reasonable in my ranking at 158 with him. I think if I'm not mistaken, earlier in the season he was close to 120 or 130. So. I just think that giant drop of 100 spots or whatever it is too much for me.
Yeah, I mean, I can admit I probably got carried away. I just found myself each time I keep moving them down and be like, oh, I'd rather have this person and just continue to.
You made it a point to
and then at one point I'm just like, you know what? I want someone to call me out on this. I'm gonna.
Right. So it was bait.
All right, so let's now it's my turn. We're going to talk about someone who I've heard get talked about in a lot of different just podcasts, different types of shows across the NBA, because there's just a lot of different debate on this guy where, on the surface of what he does, he could be boring, but a lot of guys that have been paying attention to him have seen some market improvements across the board. So Mitch, I wanted to talk to you about Herb Jones, who you have outside of the top 100 as a dynasty asset, which I feel is too low. Herb is 61 on the year, fully punting turnovers. He's still in the top 80. Again, I know he's boring, but this is 9-category basketball. And he kind of reminds me of those shades of prime Otto Porter Jr., like that 2016 year where he was efficient across the board, provided steals and blocks, points, rebounds, threes. So that's kind of the vibe that I get from Herb Jones, who is, shooting really well this year. I know it's not on great volume, so I'm not going to call him an amazing point scorer or anything like that. But this is somebody who's a really good, glue guy and a good piece to have on a 9-category roster. And he's only 25 years old too. So that's another reason as to why I probably, or why I definitely have Herb above you guys a good amount. So maybe this can kind of turn back on me for potentially having him too high based on what your point is, but just wanted to get your thoughts on Herb Jones and that situation for him in New Orleans.
Yeah, so when I see you rank Herb in the top 75, I kind of break my list down into tiers. So top 25, these guys are like superstars or studs. They somehow have potential first round upside in redraft leagues at some point in their careers, right? Top 50, these guys are all-star level players. They can provide you stats in all categories across the board. Top 75, this is where we kind of differentiate. In the top 75, I'm looking at guys who are high-level prospects coming into the draft that just haven't breaking through yet. And I see you have him, ranked near guys like Emmanuel Quickly. I think near Kuminga. You do have him over Kuminga as well, who's, proven to be a potential 2-3 option, who can contribute across the board, by the way, and Kobe White as well. Herb, he's not really a historically great shooter. This year could just be the outlier year for him, right? Where he's hitting his threes, he's hitting his free throw on low volume, by the way, which means he could fluctuate given a bad month or a bad game where he's shooting a lot of free throws and it just doesn't fall his way. Even tracing back in college, he's been a sub 33% 3-point shooter. His first 2 years, he was sub 33% as well. And at 1.5 threes a game this year on 40%, that's not really going to do anything to really sway your week. And also, threes and steals are some of the most replaceable stats to stream on the wire. While I do like Herb Jones, maybe I can creep him up a bit near the top 100 just because he doesn't hurt you anywhere and he is a good steals anchor. And he does provide blocks. So that's something that I didn't mention. And to your point, it's something that is very, lucrative moving forward. But, top 75, I just reserve some of those up and coming rising stars above him.
I agree, and I think we probably both need to meet somewhere on the middle of this and maybe probably focus on the 9. I mean, it's just the name value, because this is a point that you've brought up to me multiple times, that you need to also kind of take like trade value and name value into consideration. So obviously it kind of stings when you hear names like Quickly, Kuminga, Kobe looped in with Herb Jones. I was looking at it at much more from a numbers perspective. He's carried a lot by defense, but defense is what he's shown to be his specialty this whole time. And also what I'm looking at too is just the improvement in shooting, which is something that I think can potentially, hopefully get a little bit better for him too. But it's not on great volume. I did mention that earlier as well too. He's not going to do something crazy where he's going to make, like 5 or more threes in a game and kind of impact the landscape of your matchup for that week. So that's what I think kind of goes against why I put him up there, is just like, I guess, how boring he can be. He doesn't ever really do anything crazy. And sometimes there are games where he can go missing too. And I think it's just good to talk about Herb, because I hear him get talked about a lot, because people talk about, the remarkable shooting improvement, in addition to how he's, has a huge impact for New Orleans as a defender, allows them to have a lot of different switchable schemes, and allows them to have some kind of just nightmarish lineups where, now Zion's playing as the big man, and Herb's able to rotate on pretty much anybody, on the opposing team. So, that's kind of where I am, where I do. But I think perhaps, for next rank update, we'll probably need to be meeting somewhere in the middle on this one, for him, because, there are other names within that range that are probably going to be more exciting name value wise than he is. And, probably just looked a little bit too much on the numbers on that one.
I'd like to add real quick, Andrew, I'm glad you mentioned he has a tendency to disappear on some nights, because I've got him around where Mitch has him. Kind of an interesting dynamic of how deep this Pelicans team is that, if he's having an off game, the Pelicans can just play him 19 minutes and be fine, right? There were stretches during the middle of the season where, he's just running around out there for 20 minutes and he's not doing anything besides scoring, 2 points, and he's got a board, and that's it, right? So, to your point, the Pelicans can do all these crazy lineups and stuff like that. And I think on a different team, I could see the 75 if he's locked in like that 30+ minute role. But, obviously we're talking dynasty here, right? So we're thinking a little bit longer term. But on this super deep Pelicans team, I have a tough time getting him up there with those more exciting guys like you mentioned.
Yeah, it's like, it was just too much of a combination of where he's at rank wise right now, in addition to being 25 years old. But this is someone who might not have the best ceiling. He's, floor wise, he's safe. He's always going to probably be around this level. But I guess,
he's a good 9-cat guy.
He is. That's the biggest reason. That's the biggest reason why I brought him up, is because we are 9 category fantasy basketball players. So guys like this are useful, and this is why I referenced back to Otto Porter Jr. in his prime days, like that 2016 timeframe, when he also would go in like the top 70 range of redraft leagues.
He had like a top 20 finish or something one year.
Right. Because like obviously he was super efficient, low turnovers too, which is kind of like the same effect that's inflating Herb's rank too. So that's it's a conundrum. It's like it is something that you like because it doesn't hurt you anywhere, and the ranking shows that it's good, but like volume wise, it's not everybody's cup of tea, because there, like we've all said, there's nights where he disappears, and if he's not going to produce defense wise, then he's not useful. So that's what has him just up in this level of consideration where I have him at in general, is defense and improved shooting. And in my mind, the improved shooting is what keeps him on the floor more. But yeah, volume wise, we're not sure how much of a ceiling he has to really get a bump up in volume pretty much at all at this point. So that's going to conclude our episode of Rank Wars today. Another successful rank update and rank wars in the books, boys. So thank you for watching today's episode. Be sure to check out our website, anglefantasybasketball.wordpress.com, to see all of our content. And there's a link in there to jump into our Discord server. Make sure you're in there. You can get advice from any of us three on trades, draft choices, anything fantasy or dynasty basketball related. That's where you want to be. We also have a 30-team startup dynasty league that's approaching. It's probably going to be starting up next month in May, where we will open up recruitment for that. So the Discord is going to be the first place we make an announcement for that at too. So we hope now that that you guys had a great overall fantasy and dynasty basketball season. This is going to conclude our video coverage of this season. And now we're going to start looking forward and gearing up towards next season. So we're participating in something like that right now. So right now there is a behind the scenes mock draft going on with a few dynasty analysts that are, well regarded among the industry. We are in there, so we are kind of triple tag teaming our mock draft decisions right here. Other names in here is guys like Noah Rubin, Dan Titus, B-Dub from FBI is in here. DBC Jason is in this dynasty mock draft as well too. So I think the next video you'll see from us after maybe a couple of weeks of break here is going to be breaking down the decisions that we made in that dynasty mock draft, which is going to be, looking ahead to the seasons to come. Also soon be looking out for our top 14 big board. Mitch and I are going to have a top 14 big board put together a little bit closer to draft time around June. And of course, he and I will be hopping on some podcasts to discuss that as well. So thank you again, everybody, for tuning in today. Be sure to also follow us on Twitter, and we will see you next time.